There are many different ways we can tune our RC cars to handle how we want them to. From shock packages to the car's whole geometry, we can change a lot. There are some tuning options though that many people overlook when trying to find that magic setup. In this video, I'd like to go over some of those tuning options and highlight them. Before we begin, I'd like to thank this channel's sponsors: A-Main Hobbies, Cow RC, RC Trophy Chasers, Leg Figure Racing, and Peach State Hobbies. Anything you guys purchase using the links in the description below will directly support me as well. It's also important to note that I'll be talking mainly about 8th scale buggies and truggies in this video, as that's what I have more recent experience with. With that out of the way, let us begin. Let's begin on top of the buggy and work our way down, starting with the wing. Now, there are a few different brands of wings out there, but they generally follow two different designs. We have these razor style wings, for lack of a better term, on the right, and these wicker bill style wings on the left. Now, there are a few different variations and updates from different manufacturers, but they generally follow a similar design philosophy between these two styles. Now, many might say that wings and wing design don't really matter for the most part, and that the differences between the wings is all placebo. Well, I'm here to say that this simply isn't true. If you want an idea of what I mean, go out for a drive up to about 35 to 45 miles per hour and stick your hand out the window at different angles. Chances are you will feel different levels of resistance depending on what angle you hold your hand. This level of aerodynamics applies to RC cars as well, especially considering that the top speed for 8th scale buggies and truggies tends to be somewhere in the 35 mile per hour to 45 mile per hour range. Aerodynamics for RC cars do matter, and by extension, so does the design of your wing. Going back to the general design of the wing, starting with the wicker bill, these tend to be a little bit easier to manage at higher speeds and in the air. This is mainly because they aren't as susceptible to crosswinds due to their design. Razor wings, on the other hand, tend to be a little bit faster in low speed sections and provide a little bit higher amounts of downforce compared to the traditional wicker bill, but they are much more vulnerable to crosswinds due to their design. Another thing to take into account would be the actual weight of the wing, as this can change the feeling of how the buggy or truck can rotate due to the pendulum effect. This is why some out there have taken to running Lexan wings instead of plastic ones to reduce said weight from causing too much roll. To be honest, I've only really recommend running a Lexan wing if you're really confident in your driving or drive on a really low crash risk track, as those Lexan wings do not handle well under abuse, especially in 8th scale. Overall, wings are a valuable tuning aid to change how your car drives. There's no real full-blown upgrade part that will make your car faster, but you will be able to feel a difference with each wing type. Moving further down the car, we have the body. Once again, this is more a point of contention on whether or not different bodies make any real difference in how the car drives. Once again, this boils down to the fact that aerodynamics matter when an 8th scale car is going 40 plus miles per hour. Thing is though, the difference between bodies is a little bit lessened compared to running different design wings. In some cases even, your choice of body is limited to whoever makes bodies for it in the first place. For example, my Mayako only has 2 different bodies that are available for it as of the writing of this video. The regular body that you see here, and a lightweight body. This leads us neatly onto the option of running a lightweight body instead of a regular one. Lightweight bodies are usually more popular in 10th scale vehicles, as weight saving game there is a lot more competitive compared to 8th scale. Like I said before with the Lexan wing, it's really a trade-off of what you favor more, body longevity or slight weight saving. If you're the kind of person who really likes their distinct paint scheme, and or you paid a lot for a painter to paint it for you, and waited a long time to get them in the first place, perhaps running a regular body with reinforcement via shugu or some form of tape will be best for you. Conversely, if you're the kind of person who usually does a quick and dirty paint scheme, or a simple paint fade perhaps, then a lightweight body may be for you, as you'll see a marginal change in how your car drives. Taking off our body, we have our electronics. I won't spend too long in this section, as there's not really much to say about electronics you should go for, as it's really down to personal taste and what's available to you. It's also important to note that I may be making a short regarding ESC settings in a few days, so yeah, another time. What I will spend a bit of time on will be the motor and what kV rating you should go for. Generally, the lowest kV rating people use in competitive racing is what I'm currently running in my MX-8E, a 1900 kV motor. The highest I've seen people generally use is either 2200 or even 2350. kV rating basically means how fast a given motor will spin when a certain amount of voltage is put through it. The higher the kV, the faster it will spin. Generally, higher kV motors would naturally have a higher top end than a lower kV motor, but a lower kV motor will have more torque. Higher kV motors are usually able to be geared down to avoid them being stressed though. If I had the choice to buy a new motor at this moment in time, I would probably buy a 2200 kV motor and just tune how much power I needed for any given track using throttle dual rate. If you enjoy the power band that a lower kV gives you though, then don't feel bad about picking one up. My advice would be to try different cars with different motor kV ratings to see what you like. The last thing I'll go over when it comes to electronics relates to servos. You don't need to spend stupid amounts of money on a servo in order to race. You can run a budget servo perfectly fine for a long time. Take this $100 Mach 1 servo I currently have in my e-buggy. It has served me well for well over a year without a fuss, and it's perfectly suited for my level of driving. Let's focus on that last part for a little bit. There are plenty of people who will sink lots of money into $150 plus servos that far outpace their driving capabilities in every way, one of which relates to servo speed. This is especially important on lower grip surfaces, but if you turn the wheel too quickly, the front wheels will skid and you'll get a boatload of understeer initially. Think of it like when you turn a full-size car. The time it takes you to go from center to full lock right or left is much slower than on an RC car. What this basically means is that having a lower speed servo with a higher torque for A scale can actually help you generate more steering and overall grip in the corners than if you were to run a higher speed servo with less torque. Moving on to the chassis itself and different hop-ups you can buy for it, this is where things start to get a little bit more complicated. Unlike in 10th scale, specifically the stock class where people are looking for every gram they can save due to the limited power from the 21.5 and 17.5 power plants, e-buggies and by extension e-truggies are already really powerful. This, coupled with the fact that there is no stock class in 8th scale, thank God, means that all these things from titanium screws, turnbuckles, and various other weight-saving parts are generally not needed, at least for the reasons you may think. If you race on a track that continually treats their surface with different corrosive chemicals to help keep the traction high and the dust low, chances are if you don't pretty much immediately clean off your car and hit it with WD-40 on its joints, you'll end up with rust pretty quickly. This is where things like titanium screws and turnbuckles really come into play. Even though titanium may not be as strong as steel if it put in the same shape and volume, it won't corrode the same way steel does. This really helps, like I said, on tracks that put chemicals in the dirt to keep grip up and dust down. The only real issue here is that titanium screw kits and turnbuckles are really expensive. This goes double for 8th scale. So what does one do when they want a screw kit that will reduce the amount of maintenance needed and last a little while? Well, there are a few stainless steel screw kits out there for various vehicles, so if all you need is reduced corrosion and rust, I'd pick one up. Moving on to different parts of your car like different chassis and shock towers, this is the last tuning option that many may think about, but it does matter more than you think. Take for example my Mayako MX-8E. This buggy came with a carbon fiber rear tower, which on an 8th scale car may seem a bit stupid. Thing is though, changing the material or even shape of different parts on your car can change how it feels on the track, from shock towers to even wheels. For example, a wheel from say dialed RC that has holes in it will allow the wheel to be softer and more malleable, and it will allow it to work well on a track that requires as much mechanical grip as possible. Whereas a solid dish style wheel will work best on a higher grip track where you don't need 100% grip all of the time. Same thing can be applied to difference between carbon shock towers and aluminum ones. Another tuning option that people tend to overlook sometimes is your wheelbase. This one's quite a simple thing to figure out. The shorter your wheelbase is, the more agile and snappy your buggy or truggy will feel. The longer the wheelbase, the more stable it will be at all speeds and the easier it will be to drive. Think of it like the difference between drifting an S chassis and a Z car. Now you can buy aftermarket chassis or even OEM ones to change your wheelbase and overall car length even further, but generally those things are unneeded for most people. You can usually adjust your wheelbase slightly by moving the rear hubs back and forth using spacers, and even though this may not seem like much of an adjustment, trust me, it can make a world of a difference. Now I didn't cover everything related to setup in this video as I really could go on for a long time about the basics, but I'll save that for another day. I just wanted to go over a few that I believe are overlooked. If you enjoyed this video and maybe even learned something new, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It helps out a lot by pushing my channel into the algorithm so other people can see it. We recently hit 1 million views on the channel as a whole, and I can't thank you guys enough for helping me get this far. Speaking of thanks, I'd like to thank my active patrons Michael Williams, RC World Discord server, Dave Armstrong, Rob Bedingfield, Caden Merks, Buddy Howell, Jeffrey Coons, James D. Anderson, Shane T. Ruth, Gable Barber, Maxim RC Hobbies, and especially Morrison Watt. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Another thing I'd like to try in the future is more slow motion. That sounds like fun. Also, bonus tip, it helps you see what your car is doing at a micro level. So, yeah, little bonus one right there.